Good evening. Welcome to North West Tonight with Ian Haslam. Thank you for joining us. Our top story, put children first. A new report backed by the Alderhay Children's Hospital calls for the NHS to focus on the young. Also tonight, plans for a tidal barrage across the Mersey estuary take a step forward. Its backers say it would be a game changer for clean power. Porpoises and dolphins back in northwest waters. We meet the team that rescue them when they get into trouble.
It's Europa League action for Manchester United tonight, but could major redevelopment plans in this area see the Reds leave their iconic Old Trafford Stadium?
And it feels like autumn has well and truly kicked into gear, doesn't it? It's set to turn quite unsettled over the next few days. A full detailed forecast coming up later in the programme.
Sort out the problems of children's health and you'll sort out the nation's health. That was the blunt message today from a coalition of doctors, academics and politicians who've contributed to a report launched today from the Alderhay Children's Hospital charity called Put Children First. Now, they say a radical redesign of the NHS centred on children could help tackle health inequalities that currently cost the country £39 billion a year. The report says hospital and GP services are seeing rising numbers of diseases in children which should have been eradicated. Now, these include measles, rickets and rotten teeth. In addition, children are now presenting with conditions usually only seen in adults, such as lung disease and obesity. The numbers of young people with mental health problems has also risen sharply. And the issues are more prominent in the north, where levels of child poverty are higher and where health outcomes for children and young people are worse than in less deprived areas. So what's it all about? I asked Fiona Ashcroft from the Alderhay Hospital charity.
Here at Alderhay, we are the busiest children's hospital in the country. We treat over 450,000 children every year. So we see incredible potential, but we also see the impact of health inequality. And at the moment, we're seeing that in rising numbers of children presenting with mental health illness, lung health conditions, obesity, and dental decay. The most likely reason to be in a children's hospital needing anaesthetic is for tooth extraction, and that just shouldn't be the case.
Health Secretary Wes Streeting has said at the Labour Party conference that the problems with the NHS have to be acknowledged. He says the NHS is broken. You're calling for a major overhaul, but of course your plans, I would assume, will cost a lot of money, and it sounds like there's not a lot of money available.
I think we all know that the NHS faces challenges, but also everybody is talking about the impact of prevention. We all know that that's what we need to be doing. What we want to ensure is that when the government is thinking about this, they really put children at the heart of it.
In terms of the health inequality, we know that's growing. Tell me more about these diseases that date back to the Victorian era, like rickets, and why they remain prevalent.
That's right, we are seeing rises in preventable health conditions, and we know that poverty is having a big impact on that. Some of it is around housing, clean air, it's also around food and making sure that our children are well nourished, and across the country we know that 4.2 million children are living in poverty today, and in fact the numbers of children living in extreme poverty has tripled since 2019, and that just has to be reversed.
But have you had any response from the government as yet with what you're proposing?
We've welcomed them here to Alderhay, and they've been listening to the concerns raised by our clinicians and others, and I think that's really important. The tobacco and vaping bill is a really positive step, and the banning of junk food advertising on children. I think all of these are really good steps, but there is more to do, and we look forward to working with them on that.
Fiona Ashcroft from Alderhay Children's Charity, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll watch how that develops. Now, over the years, we've brought you quite a few reports about the possibility of a tidal barrage being built across the River Mersey to generate clean power. Well, now the project has taken a step forward. Over the next few weeks, there'll be a series of public meetings to gauge what people think of the idea. Here's our Merseyside reporter, Andy Gill.
On a calm grey autumn day in Liverpool, the Mersey doesn't look very powerful, but its tidal range is one of the biggest in the UK. A barrage across the Mersey would generate electricity by using the tide to turn turbines. Now, initial documents outlining details of the project have gone to planners.
That'll give you a broad brush of what we expect a tidal project will look like, roughly where we think it will be, and of course how much power it will generate. So that's a significant step forward.
Mayor Rotherham has been pushing the idea of a tidal barrage since he was first elected in 2017. He says it could provide cheap green energy for 120 years and reduce the area's dependence on fossil fuels. A straw poll of people on the Liverpool waterfront today revealed some support for the idea.
I think it's a good idea, yes. Anything for clean electricity, the way things are going now.
Yes.
And the cost of electricity, and they can generate it here, well, why not?
If you're going to get free energy, you know, why not? Yeah, sounds a good idea.
It generates electricity, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you want, then, isn't it? It's renewable energy, isn't it?
Another significant step is a 6-week public consultation which starts next week. Mayor Rotherham knows that not everybody is in favour of this idea. Environmentalists, for example, worry about the impact on bird life and on marine life. That's why over the next few weeks, people all along the Mersey, from Warrington down to Widnes and Runcorn, will have their chance to say what they think at a series of public meetings. There'll also be consultations in Wirral and Liverpool and online. At the Lancaster University lab, where they study energy engineering, they say projects like the Mersey barrage are potentially vital in reducing carbon emissions.
Infrastructure projects like this are not cheap to start with, but obviously you need to be bold enough to create this kind of projects for the future generations and the future of the UK.
It'll be many years before any plans are approved or rejected, and the project would rely on government funding and private investment. Andy Gill, BBC North West Tonight, Liverpool.
Some of today's other news now, and a man's been arrested on suspicion of murdering a woman from Wirral who died after falling from a balcony in Ibiza. 24-year-old Robin Eve Mains from Wallasey was fatally injured 2 years ago. A 27-year-old held recently in London has been released on bail. Merseyside police are still investigating the death and have again appealed for information. The government says it's reviewing whether funding is available for a new £12 billion rail link between Manchester and Liverpool, but it says it remains committed to improving the North's rail services. Earlier this week, new Transport Secretary Louise Haigh told the Liverpool Echo there was currently no money available. She claimed her Tory predecessors had promised Northern Powerhouse Rail without getting Treasury approval. Now, when Graham Brady was a Tory MP, he was the man who told Prime Ministers whether the party thought they should stay or go. For 14 years, the former Altrincham MP, now Lord Brady of Altrincham, chaired the powerful 1922 Backbench Committee. Now he's written his memoirs and reveals what he really thought of his party leaders, and he's been talking to our political editor, Annabelle Tiffin.
Never Prime Minister or Secretary of State, yet Graham Brady held one of the most important roles in politics for 14 years. As chair of the 1922 committee, that influential group representing Tory backbenchers, he was the soul of discretion, never revealing the number of letters of no confidence he had locked away in his safe, or the sometimes awkward conversations he had with a Prime Minister under pressure. Until now.
It's my story. I thought it should be told. I've got a unique insight, having done that job for so long and dealt with 5 different Prime Ministers during that period. Also, a uniquely turbulent period in British politics. And so I think there are some quite important things to get on the record.
And some of those things are the attempts by senior figures to oust a sitting PM, how he managed their departures, and what he really thought of some of those he served under. He describes David Cameron as a complete Theresa May's handling of Brexit as disastrous. He called Liz Truss peculiar, and Boris Johnson was casual with the truth right to the end. So did he have respect for any of them?
Well, I mean, they were all comments on very particular episodes, and when people read the book, they will see what those episodes were and why I was giving those judgments. I mean, I think I respect actually anybody who does that job. It is always an extremely difficult and challenging job, and doing that job through those years of turmoil and exceptional circumstances, the pressures were immense. So, for instance, whilst I always disagreed with Boris Johnson's handling of the COVID pandemic and thought the restrictions were too tight, I also accept that it was a hellishly difficult time to be Prime Minister and with very, very difficult judgments to make.
Who or what do you think is responsible for the Conservative losing so heavily at the last election?
There are all sorts of factors, and of course the turmoil within the party, the fact we changed our leaders so often, all of those things count. The brief but damaging period of the Truss premiership with that mini budget and the consequences from it obviously caused significant problems. But I would say more fundamental than that, the repeated lockdowns during COVID had a series of consequences, and what we've seen actually around the world is governments that were in charge at that time being punished by the electorate.
The book Kingmaker has been released just a few days before the Conservative Party conference. His former colleagues may now anxiously scour the pages to see if they get a mention. Annabelle Tiffin, BBC North West Tonight.
And I can confirm, because she told me in the newsroom earlier, Annabelle is referred to in that book. He calls her a complete political legend of broadcasting, I think. Something complimentary anyway. Well, 5 years ago on North West Tonight, we heard from 3 children from Merseyside who had family members in prison. They talked about the effect it had had on their lives. The powerful testimony of Aaron, Keris and Bella was seen by a theatre director, and now she's turned their experiences into a play. Here's Stuart Pollitt with more.
My name's Aaron and my dad's in prison.
Hi, my name is Bella and my uncle is like a big brother to me and he's sadly in prison.
My name's Keris and my dad's in prison.
This was North West Tonight in 2019. These 3 children are now teenagers.
So Ruby, why's your dad in prison? Did he rob a Greggs? Couldn't afford a meal deal, so he stole one. Hey, Ruby,
and this is a new play called 8 Hours There and Back, inspired by the experiences of Aaron, Bella, Keris and other children of prisoners.
I saw your programme and I was fascinated. They were so eloquent and funny and lively and just been put in such a terrible situation, really. So I contacted Lorna Brooks from Time Matters and said, let's make a piece of theatre about this.
What did they do? How long did they get?
We spoke to over about 60 young people and children who'd been affected by the topics that we discuss in the play. And what my job was to hone those 60 voices and to knit them together to become 3 characters.
The play's been developed over the last 5 years. They've been in rehearsals here now for a few weeks, but today is the first time that Aaron, Keris and Bella are going to see part of this play.
All of my dad's information about what he'd done, how long he'd got, on everyone's screens.
That scenario was very, very similar to the one I'd experienced. I could relate to it quite a lot.
The way they've put it and the way they've done it is like amazing, because I don't think a play like that ever been that good.
Bella's words about a prison visit were the inspiration for the play's title.
I remember saying that years ago, and now it's just like on a bunch of posters. We're not the same as them, and it doesn't make us bad.
Lorna Brooks has been working with this trio and others for almost a decade.
They are really trying so hard to get our message out that, you know, these children are traumatised, but they're not the world's future offenders. You know, they're great kids.
All 3 teenagers have been thriving in recent years. Aaron was runner-up in this global prize for his campaigning.
It's absolutely amazing to think, because if we think about it, a few years ago, I didn't expect any of this at all.
And it's kind of like just indescribable of the emotions that go through.
The way the characters portray the emotions were really reflecting how we felt at the time. To be replicating our image in the form of a creative play is absolutely amazing.
The play will visit Liverpool, Blackpool, Lancaster and Manchester until the 22nd of October. Stuart Pollitt, BBC North West Tonight, Liverpool.
Really interesting that, isn't it, to see what they've done. The North West team, which rescues stranded marine life on the beach, says they're the busiest they've ever been. Volunteer medics at the British Divers Marine Life Rescue are regularly called out to rescue seals and dolphins. They've even encountered a beached whale. Molly Brewer went out to meet the team on the Wirral to find out about the work they do.
Dolphins, porpoises, seals, turtles and even whales. These are just some of the creatures the British Divers Marine Life Rescue in the North West have tended to in recent years. These marine medics are trained in health assessment, first aid and rescue techniques. And today they're in the middle of a training exercise.
3, lift, up, side step, tiny everyone.
We fill it full of water to replicate the size and weight of the real thing when we're training the guys up and doing refreshers like today. So it would easily take 8 adults to lift that comfortably.
The team use specialist equipment and practice first aid on the replica, as if it was a real rescue.
They began the first aid, which is essentially to keep the dolphin cool, monitor its breathing, lubricate its eyes and monitor all its vital signs while feeding that back to head office.
And the work that these guys do is more important than ever. The charity says they're the busiest they've ever been.
There's always been porpoise that have washed up, the odd one or two, but not with the frequency that it's happening now.
The graph of how busy we are increases every year. It's hard to say whether it's an increase due to climate change, is it an increase due to the fact people have become more aware of what we do and they know to call.
The thing is, a lot of people don't know we exist. I probably didn't know we existed till about 3 years ago when I found an injured seal on Crosby Beach. These guys turned up, medics. Who are you? I didn't know who they were. That's how I became one.
The organisation trains over 1,000 volunteers a year nationwide, but the likelihood is it's not these medics that will come across the stranded marine life. It's members of the public.
If you do come across one, keep your distance, ring BDMLR, which is the British Divers Marine Life Rescue.
So if you find something on the beach, don't go near it, don't start poking and prodding and taking photos. That is the public's first instinct. Oh, let's go and have a look, let's take a photograph. I've got to stroke the dolphin. No, get on the phone, ring the correct people, get us guys out.
Volunteers with a real porpoise there, or is it porpoise? I don't know, that was the debate in the newsroom earlier, what bands we have. Anyway, let's move on to sport. Manchester United are in action in the Europa League tonight. Rich has gone over to Old Trafford for us. Rich, a lot of talk this week about whether United are moving to a new stadium.
Yes, Ian, United in Europa League action against FC 20 tonight. But the club is at the heart, as you say, of multi-billion-pound redevelopment plans for this whole area. One of the key questions will be, should they redevelop their iconic Old Trafford stadium, their home since 1910, or build a brand new stadium close by? Some of the options have been showcased at the Labour Party conference earlier in the week, and of course all Manchester United fans will be keeping a very keen eye on just how this all pans out. Manchester United fans arriving at Old Trafford this evening with the stadium key to very ambitious plans for the club and surrounding area. A task force has been set up to analyse the options, with the centrepiece either a rebuild for United's famous old ground or a brand new £2 billion, 100,000-seater stadium.
Love it to stay Old Trafford, it's steeped in history, innit? Nothing lasts forever though, time moves on.
Personally, most probably a new stadium.
This one rebuilt.
Definitely, rather than a new one.
Yeah, because it's just legendary, isn't it?
Gary Neville knows all about playing on the famous turf and is now a part of the regeneration task force.
Manchester United has got one of the most powerful voices in the world, even though it's just a football club. New ownership coming in has, I think, proved to be a catalyst for what would be change, and I'm delighted to be part of a task force that's setting about recommending to the club what will happen with this project.
Whatever the recommendations, this is a project that is likely to be huge, with claims that it will create 92,000 new jobs and 17,000 homes. A project that, if it's going to have a brand new stadium at its heart, is likely to mean that this freight terminal will have to be moved, with a site in St Helens earmarked as the replacement.
If we relocate the freight that is currently located behind Old Trafford, we can bring benefits for the whole of the North West, including the Liverpool City region. We can all get benefits from this regeneration.
Benefits that might mirror those in East Manchester, where with Manchester City the driver, major club and community investment is seen as a model to build on.
The City of Manchester would have the best football infrastructure in the world because of what both clubs have done. We thank City for what they've done to invest in our communities. Now you see on the west of the city a similar concept coming through.
A concept that will be fleshed out in the coming months, and one that will clearly have major implications, not just for United and Old Trafford, but across the region. Big game for Bolton Wanderers tonight. Wanderers travel to Arsenal, also in the League Cup, and Liverpool host West Ham. Some cricket news for you. The Lancashire all-rounder Stephen Croft has retired from professional cricket. Stephen made his debut in 2005, made more than 600 appearances in all forms of the game. His last appearance for Lancs this season in the T20 Blast, Lancashire losing out in the quarter-finals. He's a great friend of North West United, Stephen. We wish him all the very best. As for United tonight, let's hope they can get off to a good start in the Europa League. All the very best coverage, of course, on BBC Radio Manchester. From Old Trafford, Ian, back to you.
Thank you very much, Rich. Well, before the weather, we're going to strike a musical, if not a noisy note for the programme now. You might not know the name Joey Swindles or Busking Joe, but if you've been to a gig or a festival in the past few years, I can bet that you've heard him play nearby. That's because the 28-year-old from Bolton makes a living from drumming outside venues across the country.
I busk exclusively outside of gigs and festivals and big events. I'm Joey, but I go by Busking Joe. I think I just had a load of coffee that day because I've been working in this office. Just driving home, I seen that there was a Killers concert on. For some reason, I just thought, oh, I'll go busk outside of that. So I made this like little makeshift drum kit. That night, I made more than I did in this office and this other job that I was working at the time. I just started busking outside of gigs all the time. It's amazing. I love it. I love, because a lot of the time I'm playing and I've got to try and like focus on what I'm playing so I don't mess up. And then every now and again I'll just look up and I'll see this sea of people dancing and having a good time. If you can get under a tunnel outside of a good rowdy crowd, as in like the band who's playing has got a bit of a leery crowd, it'll be absolute chaos, and there'll be people like, everyone's got the shirts off dancing in the streets, people doing backflips. This job, you are at the mercy of people's kindness, but I think sometimes people forget how kind most people are. Do you know what I mean? And I just see the best of people all the time.
We used to have a drumming weatherman. He's long gone, but Abby's here, who also plays the drums, would you believe?
It's a weather presenter essential, what can I say? Right, let's have a quick look at some of the weather photos that have been sent in today. It was a pretty nice start, actually, wasn't it? Thank you to Alison Croft for sending this photo in from Poynton, but the clouds soon rolled in and we've seen some heavy rain arrive in the last couple of hours. If you would like to keep sending your weather photos in to us, you can do just that at North West Tonight, or you can send them directly into me through social media as well. So it looks as though my weather graphics are actually on the wrong side of the studio, so I may well have to do a 2-minute long forecast with no graph. Can I sit on the sofa? This is fun, isn't it? My weather graphics are actually behind me, so I'm going to give you a quick rundown on what things are looking like. Sat on the sofa, goodness me! So the headline for tomorrow then is a pretty unsettled one. It's going to be quite cloudy. There'll be outbreaks of rain moving through as well. Some of that heavy rain is going to start to move in through this evening and overnight. We do have a yellow Met Office weather warning in force. Low pressure very much in charge of our weather forecast over the next couple of days. So we are going to see outbreaks of fairly heavy rain and quite strong winds too. So the weather warning, you can see it there across the eastern parts of the Pennines. We will see some fairly high rainfall totals, I think. Temperatures overnight dropping off to around 10 or 11 degrees Celsius. Heavy bands of rain moving through from the southwest tomorrow, but into the afternoon it does look to turn a little bit drier. Temperatures, I think, will reach about 12, maybe 13 degrees Celsius for tomorrow, but the winds will be moving in from quite a cool direction, so that will take the edge off those temperatures ever so slightly. Now, moving into the weekend, it will start to feel much colder. I think we could even start the day on Saturday with a touch of ground frost, but that's because it will be dry and settled, and I think most of the weekend is looking largely dry. That was a first.
I know, but
8 years of weather forecasting. Never sat on the sofa for one.
Tell you what, we put you through it when you come over here, don't we? Anyway, Abby will be back with the weather later on. I'll be here with the late news at 10:30. Whatever you're doing, have a good rest of the evening from both of us. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.